I never imagined I'd be writing this story, let alone living it. But life has a way of throwing curveballs that knock you flat on your back, and my pitch came one rainy Tuesday morning, 12 years ago. That's when I lost Mike, my husband, and my daughter Amy's father. The police officer's words still echo in my head sometimes. "Mrs. Thompson, there's been an accident. A drunk driver had run a red light," they said. Mike never had a chance. I'm Karen, and at 32, I became a widow with a 9-year-old daughter to raise. The first few weeks passed in a blur of funeral arrangements, casseroles from neighbors, and trying to explain to Amy why Daddy wasn't coming home. The financial reality hit hard and fast. Even with Mike's life insurance, keeping up with the utilities and house bills in our home, the one I'd inherited from my grandmother before we got married, wasn't easy. I'd been working part-time as a project coordinator, but suddenly that wasn't enough. Thank God for Mike's parents, Sarah and Robert. They stepped in like angels when I was drowning in grief and responsibilities. I remember the first time Sarah showed up at our door with groceries and Amy's school supplies. "Karen, honey," she said, hugging me tight, "you're not alone in this. You're still our daughter, and we're here for both of you." Robert would pick Amy up from school 3 days a week, helping her with homework while I worked extra hours. They'd slip me money whenever they could, though I always felt guilty taking it. "You need to think about yourself too," Sarah would say during our Sunday dinners. "You're still young, Karen. Maybe dating." But I'd shake my head before she could finish. "I'm not ready. Maybe I'll never be ready." The truth was, Mike wasn't just my husband, he was my high school sweetheart, my first and only love. The thought of replacing him felt like betraying his memory. Instead, I threw myself into being both mother and father to Amy. We developed our own little routines: Saturday morning pancakes, homework sessions at the kitchen table, and bedtime stories where we'd make up adventures about a brave princess who looked suspiciously like Amy. But late at night, when Amy was asleep, I'd sit in my bedroom, looking at old photos and wondering if I was doing enough. The house felt so empty without Mike's loud laugh, his horrible singing in the shower, even his socks that never quite made it to the hamper. As Amy entered her teenage years, I found myself at a crossroads in my career. My boss, Linda, called me into her office one spring morning. "Karen, we've got some challenging projects coming up. Higher stakes, bigger budgets. I think you're ready for them." She slid a folder across her desk. "It'll mean some travel, though." I hesitated, thinking of Amy. "I don't know, Linda. My daughter. Your in-laws are still around, right?" She leaned forward. "Karen, your daughter's 13 now. It's time you started thinking about your career too." The projects were challenging, but exhilarating. Each successful completion brought new opportunities, and my income grew steadily. I still remember Amy's face when I came home from my first business trip. "Mom, you look different," she said, studying me. "More, I don't know, alive?" She was right. I felt alive again, not just surviving, but thriving. The years flew by in a blur of project deadlines, parent-teacher conferences, and weekend visits with the in-laws. Before I knew it, Amy was graduating high school. "Mom, I got in," she screamed over the phone one day. "University of Michigan. Can you believe it?" My heart sank and soared simultaneously. Michigan was 3 states away, but Amy's voice was so full of excitement. "That's wonderful, sweetie. We'll make it work." The day we dropped her off at college, I cried all the way home. But then something unexpected happened. I started to enjoy the quiet. For the first time in years, I could focus on myself. I cut back my hours at work, hired a contractor to renovate the kitchen I'd been complaining about for years, and planted the garden I'd always dreamed of. Amy and I kept in touch through regular Skype calls. "Mom, you won't believe what happened in chemistry today," or "Mom, the cafeteria food is terrible." I watched through my computer screen as my little girl grew into a competent young woman. Her graduation day was perfect, sunny, but not too hot. Sarah and Robert sat beside me, all of us beaming with pride as Amy crossed the stage. I'm staying here, Mom, she announced over dinner that evening. I've got a job offer at a marketing firm. I nodded, trying to hide my disappointment. But maybe this was better. She was building her own life, just as I had built mine. 2 years later, Amy showed up on my doorstep with a tall, handsome man named James. Mom, we're getting engaged, she squealed, flashing a diamond ring. I was ecstatic. Robert and I immediately offered to help with the wedding expenses. But as the plans grew more elaborate, so did the costs. Each week brought new requests: designer dress, luxury venue, exotic flowers, premium catering. Honey, I said gently one evening during a particularly expensive cake tasting, maybe we should consider something a bit more modest? Amy's eyes immediately welled up with tears. But Mom, you should see Melissa's wedding photos on Instagram. And Rachel's reception was in that beautiful vineyard. I can't be the only one with a basic wedding. I looked at my daughter's pleading face and felt my resolve crumble. What was money compared to her happiness? So I dipped into my savings again, and the wedding was everything she'd dreamed of, a fairy tale celebration in Michigan complete with ice sculptures and a 7-tier cake. After the extravaganza of Amy's wedding, my bank account needed recovery time, and honestly, so did I. The house felt serene again, and I settled back into my routine. Then, 6 months after the wedding, Amy called. Mom, we're coming to visit this weekend. We have something exciting to discuss. That Sunday morning, I was making coffee when they arrived. Mom, you won't believe what we're planning, Amy exclaimed, settling onto our kitchen bar stool. Her eyes were sparkling with that same look she used to get when asking for a new toy as a child. We're going to open our own business, James announced proudly. An auto parts store. I poured them coffee, nodding encouragingly. That's interesting. Tell me more about your plans. Well, Amy leaned forward, we found the perfect location. It's in a great area with lots of traffic. We just need some startup capital. When Amy named the figure, I literally choked on my coffee, splattering some onto the counter. You're joking, right? Mom, it's a solid investment. Amy's voice took on that wheedling tone I remembered from her teenage years. The location alone. Have you done any market research? I interrupted, wiping up the spilled coffee. What's your business plan? We don't need all that. Amy waved her hand dismissively. Mom, we know what we're doing. I have a business degree, remember? A marketing degree, I corrected. And James, what's your experience with auto parts? I've always been interested in cars, he mumbled. Look, Amy's voice hardened, I'm your only heir. Everything you have will be mine eventually anyway. Why not help me now when I actually need it? The coffee cup froze halfway to my mouth. I slowly set it down, feeling a cold anger I'd never experienced before with my daughter. First of all, I said carefully, measuring each word, being my heir doesn't entitle you to my money while I'm alive. Second, I haven't seen a single piece of paper showing me this is a viable business. No market analysis, no financial projections, nothing. Come on, James, Amy grabbed her purse. We're leaving. Obviously, Mom cares more about her money than her only daughter's happiness. They stormed out, the door slamming behind them. I sat there for a long time, staring at their untouched coffee cups. Weeks passed without a word from Amy. Then I saw it on Facebook, photos of a storefront with a grand opening banner. Dreams do come true, Amy's post read. So grateful we could secure a business loan to make this happen. Entrepreneurs, business owners. More posts followed, Amy behind the counter, James arranging displays, both of them smiling in front of fully stocked shelves. Then came the vacation photos, Amy and James on a Hawaiian beach, cocktails in hand. When hard work pays off. Business success, living our best life. Then the tone of the post started to change. The photos became less flashy, the captions less boastful. Business photos disappeared entirely, replaced by vague inspirational quotes about learning from challenges and staying strong through storms. Finally, 6 months after their grand opening, Amy posted a long message. Life doesn't always go as planned. Sometimes you have to know when to close one door so another can open. Today we're announcing the closure of Thompson Auto Parts. Thank you to all our customers who supported us on this journey. New beginnings life lessons. The doorbell rang on a chilly October evening. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I muted the TV and approached cautiously. Through the peephole, I saw Amy and James, looking nothing like the confident entrepreneurs from their Hawaii photos. When I opened the door, Amy burst into tears. James stood behind her, staring at his shoes. "Mom," Amy's voice cracked. "We need help. We lost everything," James finally spoke. "The business loan, we can't even make rent anymore." Over cups of hot tea, they laid out their situation. The business loan was massive, their credit was destroyed, and they couldn't afford even a basic apartment. They'd been staying with friends, bouncing between couches. Could we stay here for a while?" Amy asked, her voice small. "Just until we get back on our feet." I took a deep breath. "Yes, but we need to set some ground rules." They nodded eagerly, relief washing over their faces. I helped them move into the guest room the next day, and our new life began. I started taking on extra projects at work, knowing I had 2 more mouths to feed. My usual 8-hour days stretched into 10, sometimes 12. Both Amy and James found jobs. She had a local marketing firm, he had an auto repair shop, but their salaries barely covered their loan payments. To my surprise, Amy stepped up at home. She'd have dinner ready when I got home late, the kitchen clean and tidy. For a while, it seemed to work. We fell into a routine, James and Amy leaving early for their jobs, me working late, coming home to a warm meal and a clean house. Then Linda, my boss of 15 years, called me into her office. "Karen, I'm leaving the company," she said without preamble. "I wanted you to hear it from me first. The new director starts next week. Between us, he's got his own way of doing things. Be careful." She was right. The new director, Mr. Peterson, swept in like a cold wind. Suddenly there were new procedures, new reporting structures, new faces in management positions. I watched as, one by one, Linda's old team members were either pushed out or left voluntarily. The atmosphere grew tense, with whispered conversations in break rooms and worried glances in hallways. Then, 2 months after Linda left, I got the email, "Please see Mr. Peterson at 2 p.m. I knew before I even sat down in his chrome and leather office. The rehearsed speech, the fake sympathy in his voice, I'd seen it all before, just never from this side of the desk. "We're restructuring the department," he said smoothly. "Your position has been eliminated." I sat there, numb, thinking about Amy and James at home, about the increased grocery bills, about the utilities that had doubled since they moved in. How was I going to tell them? That evening, I sat at our kitchen table, still in my work clothes, staring at my hands. Amy and James were across from me, their dinner plates pushed aside. "I've been let go," I said quietly. "The new director, he's restructuring the department." The silence that followed was deafening. I looked up to catch them exchanging a quick glance. Was that panic in their eyes? That night, I lay awake making plans. First order of business, budget cuts. No more takeout, no more premium brands, no more extras. We'd need to tighten our belts until I found new employment. The first signs of trouble appeared at breakfast 2 weeks later. Amy stared at the store brand cereal box like it had personally offended her. "Really, Mom? What happened to the good stuff?" "We need to be careful with money right now," I explained. "It's temporary." James pushed his bowl away. "I can't eat this. It tastes like cardboard." That evening, I made a simple casserole instead of ordering our usual Friday night Chinese. Amy took one bite and dropped her fork with a clatter. "This is what we're eating now?" She looked at James. "Honey, maybe we should just grab something on our way home tomorrow." "You're welcome to buy your own groceries," I said evenly. The atmosphere in the house changed after that. Instead of coming home to cooked meals, I found dirty dishes in the sink and empty takeout containers in the trash. Clearly, they were buying their own food now. One evening, as I was cooking dinner for myself, Amy leaned against the counter. "You know, Mom, it's kind of weird having you home all the time," she said. "James and I used to have the house to ourselves in the evenings." I turned from the stove. "This is my house, Amy." "Yeah, but," she waved her hand vaguely. "Don't you have job applications to do or something?" The criticisms became constant. If I cleaned, I was moving their things. If I watched TV in the living room, I was always around. If I cooked, the smell was overwhelming. Then came that Wednesday afternoon. I was heading to the laundry room when I heard whispers from the guest bedroom. I shouldn't have stopped, shouldn't have listened, but something in their tone made me pause. "We need to figure out how to get her out," James was saying. "She's just sitting around all day, eating our food." "I know," Amy replied. "She's become such a freeloader. At least when she was working, she was useful." I stood there, frozen, my laundry basket pressing against my hip. My own daughter, plotting to push me out of my own house. The same house where I'd raised her, where I'd held her through thunderstorms and teenage heartbreaks, where I'd kept her safe after losing her father. Quietly, I turned and walked back to my room. I didn't confront them, not yet. Instead, I sat at my desk and powered up my phone's voice recorder app. Something told me I might need evidence of their conversations. The tension finally broke over a pot roast dinner I'd made. Amy pushed her plate away and cleared her throat dramatically. "Mom, we need to talk about the living situation," she announced, exchanging glances with James. "We'd been thinking. It's just that, well, James and I are working, and you're..." She paused, choosing her words, "not contributing right now." James nodded encouragingly at her. "Maybe it would be better if you stayed with Grandma and Grandpa for a while," Amy continued, her voice sickly sweet. "They have that spare room, and we could handle things here." I stared at my daughter, barely recognizing the person she'd become. "Let me be very clear. This is my house. I took you both in when you had nowhere to go. If you're unhappy with the arrangement, you're welcome to leave." Amy's face flushed red. "You're being selfish," she shouted, shoving back from the table. "We're family. We're supposed to help each other." "Yes, we are," I agreed quietly. "Funny how you only remember that when you need something from me." She stormed off to her room, James trailing behind her like a shadow. After that night, the house became a war zone of silence. They started buying their own groceries, labeling everything in the fridge with passive-aggressive sticky notes. Amy and James only, "Do not touch." "I'm not feeding a freeloader," Amy would announce loudly whenever she cooked, making sure I could hear from the next room. "Some people should learn to support themselves." I said nothing. Instead, I kept my phone handy, recording their cruel comments and whispered plots. The evidence was building, though I wasn't sure yet what I'd do with it. Then, during one of my morning walks 2 weeks later, the only peace I found these days, my phone rang. It was Linda, my former boss. "Karen, got a minute? I've started my own consulting firm. Listen, I need a chief project manager, and you're the only person I trust for the job. Interested?" My heart skipped a beat. "What's the salary range?" When she named the figure, I had to sit down on a nearby bench. It was substantially more than my previous position. "We need someone to start immediately," Linda continued. "The office is all set up. Can you come by tomorrow morning?" "Yes," I said, without hesitation. "Yes, I can." I didn't breathe a word to Amy or James that evening. The next morning, I dressed carefully in my best suit and drove to the address Linda had given me. The office was beautiful, all glass and modern furnishings. Linda greeted me with a hug and showed me to my new office. My office. With a window view and my name on the door. "Welcome aboard," she smiled, handing me the contract. I signed immediately, my hand steady and sure. Driving home that afternoon, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. An hour later, I stood on my own front porch, key in hand, staring at the lock in disbelief. They'd actually changed the locks. My hand trembled as I knocked on the door. The door opened, and there they stood, Amy and James, blocking the entrance like bouncers at a club. "You're not welcome here anymore," Amy said coldly. "We've had enough of your freeloading." I felt like I'd been slapped. "Freeloading? In my own house?" "Your house?" James scoffed. "You don't contribute anything anymore. You just sit around all day while we work." "Amy," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "have you forgotten that I took you in when your business failed? When you had nothing?" She shrugged, and the gesture was so dismissive it made my heart ache. "Yeah, well, that was different. You had money then, so you were worth respecting. Now?" She looked me up and down. "You're just taking up space." Before I could respond, Amy slammed the door in my face. I stood there, my hand still raised, as if frozen in time. 25 years of motherhood, of sacrifice, of love, and this was what it had come to. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and dialed 911. The police arrived within minutes, 2 officers, one older with graying temples, one younger with kind eyes. I explained the situation, showing them the property documents I thankfully kept in my car. When they rang the doorbell, Amy answered with her sweet, innocent face, the one I'd seen her use countless times to get out of trouble. "Officers, there seems to be a misunderstanding," she began. "Step aside, ma'am," the older officer said firmly. "We need to let the legal owner enter her property." I walked in, my heels clicking on the hardwood floors my grandmother had loved so much. "This is ridiculous." Amy's voice rose. "I have rights. This was my father's house." I pulled out the property deed. "No, Amy. This house was given to me by my grandmother, before I even met your father. It was never his, and it's certainly not yours." But, her face crumpled. "Where are we supposed to go? We have nowhere else." For a moment, I saw my little girl again, the one who'd come to me with scraped knees and broken toys, trusting me to fix everything. But then I remembered the recordings on my phone, the cruel words, the changed locks. "That's not my problem anymore," I said quietly. "You didn't care where I would go when you locked me out. Pack your things and leave." "Mom, please." Amy started crying, but I'd seen this performance before. "Officers," I turned to the police, "could you please ensure they leave the premises?" They nodded, and I stood in my living room, watching as Amy and James stuffed their belongings into suitcases, all while Amy alternated between crying and glaring at me. Finally, they were gone. I locked the door behind them, then immediately picked up my phone. "Hello, yes, I need a locksmith. Emergency service, please. I need all the locks changed tonight." As I waited for the locksmith, I walked through my house, straightening pictures, touching familiar surfaces. My house. My grandmother's house. The one thing I'd never let anyone take from me, not even my own daughter. Life settled into a new rhythm. My job at Linda's company was challenging and rewarding, and I threw myself into the work. Coming home to an empty house wasn't easy, but at least it was peaceful. Then Sarah called. "Karen?" Her voice sounded strained. "We need to talk. Amy and James showed up at our door last night. They're saying horrible things about you. That you cruelly threw them out, that you're selfish." I took a deep breath. "Sarah, there's something you need to hear." I played the recording over the phone. Amy and James's voices came through clearly. "Once your grandparents kick the bucket, we'll get their house too," James was saying. "I know," Amy replied. "They're getting so old now. Hopefully it won't take too long. That neighborhood's worth a fortune." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. 2 days later, Sarah called back. Her voice was stronger this time. "We told them no," she said. "You should have seen Amy's face when we said we knew about their plans for our house. They left in quite a state." "Are you okay?" I asked. "We will be. Robert and we've been talking. we're updating our will. Everything's going to you, Karen. You've been more of a daughter to us than Amy's been a granddaughter. Months passed. I settled into my new position, even earned a company award for a particularly successful project. Then one day, a Facebook message popped up. Amy. Mom, I heard about your new job. Congratulations. Listen, James and I have been doing a lot of thinking. We realize we behaved terribly. We've changed, I promise. Could we come home? We'll be different this time. I stared at the message for a long time, remembering the little girl who used to climb into my lap during thunderstorms, the teenager who rolled her eyes but still kissed me goodnight, the bride who'd looked so beautiful in her wedding dress. But I also remembered the cruel words, the changed locks, the calculated plots against her own grandparents. Amy, I wrote back, I don't believe you've changed. I think you've just run out of options. You need to solve your own problems now. I'll always be your mother, but I can't be your safety net anymore. She didn't respond. That was a year ago. Sometimes I drive past places that hold memories, her old school, the park where she learned to ride a bike, the ice cream shop where we celebrated every report card. I wonder if she thinks about those times too. Sarah and Robert come over for Sunday dinners now. We talk about Amy sometimes, wondering where she is, hoping she's okay. They've officially changed their will, as they said they would. You'll know what's right when the time comes, Sarah told me, squeezing my hand. The truth is, I do still hope for reconciliation someday. Not the quick fix Amy proposed in her message, but a real healing. One based on honest conversations, genuine remorse, and true change. Until then, I focus on my work, tend to my garden, and care for Sarah and Robert as they cared for me all those years ago.